Teldrassil. Teldrassil.
Teldrassil.
Teldrassil.
Teldrassil.
Teldrassil.
I tried, okay? It's not... I take the blame, but it's not just me, okay? Hey, it's all. It is November 10th, 2017. This is Warcraft Weekly. I don't have Bob this time around because there's just so much to cover and talk about that this edition of Warcraft Weekly. Oh, by the way, this is Warcraft Weekly. But before I get started, I just want to say that this is going to be this is just going to be more talking. I'm not going to put any sort of post-production into it this time around, or at least I'm not going to put very much at all. Because like I said, there's so much to talk about, and I want to make sure that I can get this out at a reasonable enough time. Now, I know that there's a lot of people that have already talked about the features and all the other cool things that are coming in. Battle for Azeroth, the next expansion that's coming to the World of Warcraft. But, since you guys already know that, and I want to thank the many YouTubers that have bombarded all of you with all the information and stuff that you probably already know, even if they might be telling you, oh, here are things that you probably don't know. But I'm going to be talking about as much of this stuff as possible, just from more like as a reaction to all these things, what I think about them, some of my concerns. And I know that it is way too early to really come to any sorts of conclusions, but I want to express my concerns now, just so that maybe this kind of feedback can get back to Blizzard, and, well, hopefully Battle for Azeroth will improve by the time it goes live. Now for a little bit of news, because don't forget, we are still playing World of Warcraft Legion, as much as some people want to forget about that. And Terrazz the Burning Throne is coming November 28th. Finally, I think. It sort of feels like it's been a while, and I feel bad. I don't. Maybe it's because the overall impression of the raid isn't, for me, if I were to, if someone put a gun to my head and say, hey, what raid is better, Nighthold or Tomb of Sargeras, I would say, hey, you don't need to put a gun in my head. It's gonna be the Nighthold pretty easily. I like the feel and the balance of that raid better than I did with Tomb of Sargeras, as you guys, the running joke is Tomb of SoulSoBreezy and all that. With regards to like the mechanics that came from Tomb, it was just a little bit it was a little bit too unforgiving in that it bypassed. You couldn't really outgear the instance. I mean, you could, but at the same time, it was so easy to make a mistake regardless of what kind of gear you had that you didn't really have that feeling of, hey, let's just blow through this thing really quick. On the flip side, the fights in the Nighthold, they did give you the opportunity to possibly make mistakes, but your gear and your experience did allow you to make up for it. The Tomb of Sargeras, not so much. Anyway, with Terrazz the Burning Throne coming in 18 or so days as of this recording, I'm pretty excited. I know nothing about the fights because that's how I roll. I try not to look up those kinds of things, but I'm just really excited for it. And I'm looking forward, especially to the forwarding of the story, the forwarding of the narrative, and what basically the end of the entire Burning Legion storyline. For now, the raid itself is going to have that usual schedule with the normal and heroic versions of the raid coming out on November 28th. The week after, we're going to get the mythic version, and then we're going to get a cycle of releases of the LFR version. So that means on January 16th, the final wing of LFR is going to come out, which also means that there's going to be a big forwarding of the story on that day too. As you guys know, when it came to the end of Tomb of Sargeras, afterwards, you see Argus in the sky. Oh, that's cool. And that was exclusively for players who had completed the entire instance, in normal mode or above. But after the final wing of LFR came out, that's when everyone was able to get access to it, regardless of even if they completed the instance or not, because they just wanted to forward the story. And I like that. I like that they were doing like that, a big ambient change like that. It looks like we're not going to get something at that level. We're not going to get the skybox changing or any. Well, okay, maybe we will get the skybox to change, but we're not going to see the same level of, oh my god, super surprise. But, well, we just need to go to a certain zone and find out what happens next. I'm kind of excited, even if most of you have already been spoiled on it. It's okay. During Blizzcon, it might have been slightly overlooked, but the 7.3.5 patch is also coming at some later dates. Most likely after January 16th, but, I'm going to guess like February or so. At this point, that whole 11-week paradigm, we're I think we're kind of almost throwing that out of the window, or we're doing kind of a reset. I think what threw it off was a Thanksgiving holiday, and there's no doubt that Christmas will probably factor in too, but I'm going to think that give or take a couple of weeks, we're still going to get like a very similar kind of release schedule. Anyway, with 7.3.5, we're going to get the Seething Shore battleground. Now, this isn't exactly the war for the Well of Eternity that I thought was going to happen after the events on Argus, but I was half right. You know, it looks like the Alliance and the Horde, they're just going to start going at it, fighting for resources, and well, this is what's going to kick off the entire Battle for Azeroth storyline. So on top of the Seething Shore, I am absolutely counting on a forwarding of the narrative in the story. I'm guessing that we're going to get additional quest lines, you know, maybe small things like that to just kind of breadcrumb us along as we're slogging through Rantoris for who knows how long. We're also getting Uldur Timewalking, which is both expected and not expected. I mean, Ulduar is probably one of the most celebrated raids of all time. It is the GOAT of raids in the World of Warcraft, according to a lot of people. Part of me was expecting Icecrown Citadel to be chosen as the Timewalking raid because, you know, the thing was called Wrath of the Lich King, and you know, the titular raid, you know, that has pretty much its namesake almost. You would figure that would be the defining raid for Wrath of the Lich King, but you know, I'm still kind of glad that they chose Ulduar anyway. It's just a fun raid. I have some cool memories from it. Hopefully, I won't bastardize them too much when we all go back in again. One really cool thing is that they're also going to allow the hard modes that came from Ulduar way back in those days when that was still kind of a thing. So I can count on one of my guys hitting the big red button, and then I'll be really pissed off at him. I know who it is. If he comes, I know who it is. He's gonna press that button and I'll be like, and overall, I think it should be fun. I mean, my guild never had the chance to try out Algalon when he was current. We never had a chance to try to do Zero Lights. That wasn't, you know, that definitely wasn't possible for us. So I am excited to try it out. When it does, you know, when the patch comes out, and you know, the patch, just because the patch comes out, just like with Black Temple Timewalking, it didn't exactly come out like that week. It's probably going to be a while, but when it does come, I'm going to invite everyone's going to be invited. People that from the stream or the channel, you guys will be free to join, and I'll make an announcement when we get closer to that day. And the last minor thing that comes with patch 7.3.5 is just this little leveling thing that's going to happen to the whole world. The entire world of the World of Warcraft is going to be scaled from 10 to 60. Now, you still have your starting zones, but once you hit level 10, you'll be able to break off and go pretty much anywhere you want within the classic, you know, within the classic areas of the World of Warcraft. Just don't go into like Twilight Highlands. You're gonna get trucked, okay? Once you hit level 60, you can choose whether or not you go to Outlandville or, you know, Lich King Land. You know, you can go to one of those places and level there from level 60 to 80. So I told you it was coming, and I was surprised that I was even remotely right. Woo! By the way, sorry Outland, but I ain't never going back. Once you hit 80, you choose between Cataclysm and Miss Pandariaville when it comes to your leveling from 80 to 90. What am I going to choose? Mists, obviously. For me, the questing overall was just a lot more fun. If you can get over pandas, then you're good. I'm really excited for this because this finally gives me a reason to go all the way back and level a new 2. And I already have a bunch of max level characters, and you know, I never went back to do Cataclysm. So I'm finally going to do it. I'm finally going to level from 1 and do all that stuff without just dungeon running, because that was the typical thing that you would do. I admit that I'm going to be a little bit anxious about just trying to dungeon run your way to 60 in the classic version, or you know, in the classic part of WoW, because that's a lot of dungeons to choose from, and if all of those are in fact going to be scaled, that's dozens and dozens, or that's just a lot of dungeons that you could possibly queue for. So I'm a little bit worried that queue times will be a little bit too long depending on what you're doing. I'm not quite sure how Blizzard's going to control that, or if there's just a minor detail that I had missed. Overall, this is the 0.5 patch that I'm looking for. So you know, kudos to Blizzard for coming through with, you know, having meaning to what their 1.0 patches mean and what their 0.5 patches mean, and apparently what their 0.2 patches mean, which which ain't shit. So there was a little thing that went on last weekend where me and a bunch of guildmates, we all went to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, and we ate a lot, and then we drank a lot, and then we talked a lot of smack, and then we took some silly pictures like that, and that was about it. And Blizzcon happened. Blizzcon 2017 kicked off with gangbusters. I don't think anyone expected Classic Realms to be announced, and I'll have a link below. I have my extended thoughts on what I think about the Classic announcement, but you know, the really quick thing is that I'm happy that it's happening. I think it's a positive for the World of Warcraft community in, you know, as a whole, but I have concerns about just how it's going to be implemented, and more importantly, how the community is going to how the community is going to come together with trying to come to that conclusion of how Classic WoW is going to be implemented. So take a look at that and feel free to share your thoughts. Of course, World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth was announced, and like I said, I'm not going to go over feature by feature, you know, what they are and this is how they work. I'm sure that you folks already know, and there are probably tons and tons of videos that already explain that. So I'm not going to go over that, but I'm just going to go over my reactions to them. As for how BlizzCon was for me personally, it was like any other year. It was pretty much like any other year. As in, it was awesome. It was awesome. Like I said, I had chicken and waffles. We got to walk around. We got to play stuff. I got to play test the new Battle for Azeroth a little bit. And as I predicted internally, I got to meet like nobody. So I would have felt pretty embarrassed if I was like, hey, Asmongold, let me get your autograph, or, you know, stuff like that. I mean, I could have, but I don't want to bother. I don't want to bother them with stuff like that. But I was recognized by 2 people, which, when you consider the odds, that's more people than I thought that would recognize me. One person was Mr. GM, that lovable guy that uses private server technology to break into the clients and like do some, you know, pull shenanigans. The other person I ran to in one of the halls, and I think, if I'm right, I think his name was Jake. So if it was Jake, if it is you, Jake, then hey, you helped make my day. Thank you very much. And if it wasn't you, well, I hope you had a good time at BlizzCon anyway, and for the person that did say hi to me, I really appreciate that. Thank you. So, Battle for Azeroth. How should I start this? I guess I'll start off with asking the question of, is it gonna suck? Did that announcement suck? The cinematic is unquestionably good, and I'm talking about the quality first. The way that they framed everything was just an awesome cinematic. Now I know that the theme is not something that turns everyone on. A lot of people were expecting Void Lords, Old Gods, you know, Ashara, Jaina as a Dreadlord, that sort of thing. But then that's kind of expected. You know, people will speculate, as I do, on certain things, and if they're wrong, they're like, oh, this son of a bitch, you know, I thought I was gonna be right, and you know, this sucks, and maybe they do think it sucks, but it was like electrifying. Like you can't understand, you know, just me telling you, like, when, you know, during those big moments when Sylvanas is like for the Horde, and when Anduin's like for the Alliance, and like all the flash and everything, it had the crowd like almost up in their seats. It was super exciting. Even going back to the World of Warcraft Classic announcement, there were a lot of cheers, and at the same time, understandably, there were a lot of boos that I was able to overhear as well. But as for the game itself and the features and whatnot, well, let me try to run through the list. Warfronts, which is, you know, the 20-man PvE kind of scenario thing where you build up an army and then you smash your face against an enemy army of NPCs. You know, it's not a PvP thing, it's just a PvE thing, and then you get things out of it. And I'm right now, at least with what little information that we have, even like the foundation and the framing of what Warfronts is going to be, it has me anxious. Like, it already sounds, I admit, it already sounds kind of boring. And here's why. Considering the narrative, I'm a tank, I'm a paladin, I've fought dragons and gods, and I've killed them. I've killed a lot of these things, or most of these things. And now here I am, fighting against my counterparts who have also, done these amazing things. And now my duties are relegated to gathering resources, helping build stuff, building an army that I send off or that I watch fight. I feel like I feel like a giant mouse cursor in Warfronts, where I'm just kind of going from place to place, doing things, and at least at the moment, it doesn't feel like I'm fully engaged into the fight itself. It's more like, you know, the game behind it, the resource management, the building of the infrastructure, that sort of thing. From the many interviews that have been going out during and after BlizzCon, you know, we're supposed to be kind of like the hero class in Warcraft 3, where, you know, we're big and tough and strong, and escorting us might be like a small army of grunts or something like that to kind of help us out when we're trying to complete objectives. But part of me has the feeling that despite the meta, despite the possible change in meta because of the way that Warfront commanders are going to change kind of the way the game is played, it's still going to be very predictable. It's going to be very, very mechanical, where you plop in and we'll have a general build order because some website will tell us what to do in case of what, you know, so everyone will say, oh, build a barracks first, build the lumber mill first, and so on and so forth. A lot of people are just going to zerg from one thing or another, or you're going to have like a small pocket of people that are like, oh, you do defense or something like that. And there's more that I can say to it, but at least at the moment, I'm just anxious about it. Of course, we don't know everything yet. There's a lot more to find out and test. But at least my first impression of it is, it's okay. But there's one redeeming quality there's one very, very redeeming quality to it, which I'll talk about later, because first I want to talk about island expeditions. Now, this is something that I can more easily get behind. This is a more familiar framework because it's just the return of scenarios, which is something that a lot of players have been looking for. My first impression of this is a lot more positive. I think this could be potentially very, very cool. The premise still is pretty simple. I mean, there's a whole puzzle to solve as they had framed it, but essentially you and two buddies or two strangers go in, you run in, you complete objectives, you break shit, and then you get something out of it. I'm a little bit anxious about just how this advanced AI is going to work, but at the moment I'm hopeful. The way that Jeremy Fiesel and damn, I forgot the name of the other person. But the way that it was framed and the way that they described it, it sounds like it could be a whole lot of fun. I mean, you're basically doing PvE objectives, and then there is a PvP-ish element regardless of what game mode you play. I'm a little bit weirded out about there being so many difficulties to it, but the one that I'm most excited about is the PvP one, because that just throws everything out the window with regards to like gear, and, you know, can you like overgear the mythic version? Absolutely. But then once you get to the PvP one, anything goes. I mean, I'm not sure if they had said that they're going to apply PvP rule sets over there. I think that would be kind of weird because you're also doing PvE related stuff. So part of me thinks it's going to be a world PvP-ish sort of thing. And, you know, typically, you know, of course, since you're queuing up for it, that whole PvE flag thing, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, that's not going to apply. You're obviously going into PvP. You know what you're getting into, so screw it. Who cares what you're flagged as? But I think that could be potentially a lot of fun if the rewards and incentives to go there in the PvP setting is worth it. So when you take in Warfronts and Island Expeditions, I use these things to answer some of the concerns that players have of, well, this announcement kind of sucked. You know, there wasn't a whole lot, there wasn't really nothing new. It was just these two things, and it's just the same old shit. And they're right. A lot of it is the same old stuff, but when you think about it, that's usually how it goes. I mean, with Legion, they took familiar systems like daily quests and dungeons, and they amped them up like crazy. You know, they turned them into these perpetual platforms of content to complete, and overall, players are extremely happy about it. But they weren't exactly brand new things, or they weren't exactly other alternative things to do. They're just enhanced versions of what we had already done. Warfronts and Island Expeditions are not something that existed at all in the Legion landscape. Now, of course, Island Expeditions are pretty much like scenarios, just enhanced, just like how Quest became World Quest, Dungeons became Mythic Keystones, and so on and so forth. So in the World of Warcraft, where there's, X amount of things to do, adding these new things, to me, is a huge plus. Whether you like them or you think it's total dog shit, the point is that there are just more different things to do. My hope, of course, is that these things are actually fun to do, and that the entire pool of rewards is spread around Warfronts and island expeditions and world quests and raiding and dungeons and PvP and all that stuff. You know, there's so many different activities to do. My hope is that the spread of rewards, because rewards are a big thing in the World of Warcraft, that they're spread in a fair way. We want to make sure that the time that we invest into these different kinds of activities are worth it. Give me an exclusive thing that comes out of Warfronts, and they are with the transmog sets, and I hope that they expand on that like a lot more, especially because we don't exactly know the frequency as to how often we'll be doing Warfronts. Is it going to be like once a week, like a world boss? Is it going to be you know, once every couple of hours on a random thing, kind of like Legion Assault objectives? I don't know. It's going to be up to some of the testing and a lot of our input to try to steer the ship and influence Blizzard to go one way or another, depending on what we want. So let's move on to Kul'tiras and Zandalar, which are zones and locales that players have very much wanted to visit. And so Blizzard was like, hey, how about both? The awesome thing that I liked from the reveal of these two zones is that they were the colors. I really like the colors because they were a lot more blended than normal. I mean, in Legion, we had colors that kind of popped, as in there was a lot of, you know, green on top of Earth. It was, you know, it had a very poppy feeling. I guess that's the way to describe it for me. The environments here, while they look as natural as they did in Legion, the colors look a lot more natural. Like, you go into a town and it looks drab and it looks like eh. And maybe there could have been a little bit more color. Like, maybe we could have seen like different types of buildings where it's like one's more run down than the other or something like that. But overall, the color that you're seeing in like the cities in Kul'tiras, it has a really city kind of feel. And by contrast, you take these similar buildings and you put it in a much more green area. Then everything just looks really awesome. This is easily, to me, some of the most beautiful environments that Blizzard has made to date. Now, of course, it's just a matter of how players are going to feel going around a giant mountain or going up winding paths. And personally, I didn't mind that at all. I know a lot of people did, so maybe Blizzard will respond to that a little bit. But I hope it does. I hope they don't take it too far, because I wasn't too fond of very obvious looking paths like we saw in Warlords of Draenor. But one thing I do miss wider open areas, and it looks like we're going to see a decent chunk of that in Battle for Azeroth. Zandalar looks like a trip. It's like Stranglethorn Vale on crack, which we haven't really seen. I mean, we had a little bit of jungly kind of stuff in Gorgrond, in Sholazar Basin, but this is going to have that. This, in my opinion, is going to have a really strong theme to it of the whole jungle landscape, and seeing some of the other environments. Like during the playtest, we saw like this big blood moon in the sky, and it was such a trip. It was amazing. Going back to Kul'tiras though, I mean, I really like the look of the Zandalar trolls, but the Kul'tarians, I don't know how to pronounce that, but the people in Kul'tiras, the new unique models that are being made to have those kinds of humans, dude, they look like they're freaking from like a damn Disney movie. And it's cool because just their mannerisms have their own kind of emotion to it. And I think this is something that you don't see very much in the other character models. I mean, you see like some of the idle animations, like one of the more notable ones for me is the Blood Elf female, because she looks all sassy. She's just like, ugh, whatever. And but I really like just the posture that the people of Kul'tiras have. It's just really cool. Now I have one question that so far has went unanswered, and that's with regards to this navy. Kul'tiras is supposed to have the greatest navy on Azeroth. Supposedly Zandalar has, you know, the greatest navy on Azeroth, but we've only seen some of the ships over in Kul'tiras, and you can see them in kind of this preview video. But what about the Zandalar? What do they have? Don't tell me they have like a whole bunch of advanced canoes and longboats or something like that, because that seems very, very unimpressive, as opposed to, you know, cool Tauren ships with cannons and other cool things on it. Actually, I'll take that back just a little bit. When you're looking at island expeditions, you see like one little glimpse of a Horde ship, and I don't think that's very representative of the Zandalar at all. My impression was that, once we do get to max level, once we do start doing these island expeditions, that we're doing it with the help of the Zandalar or the help of kul'tiras. So my hopes are that not revealing the Zandalari navy was intentional, that they haven't decided what to do, or they just want to make a big splash on it, which they probably should have if what I'm thinking is right. But I want to see something on as great of a spectacle as like an impressive looking kul'tiras battleship. I want to see freaking sea monsters, okay? I want to see like the dinosaur that we saw in the preview. I want to see that guy in the water and a bunch of trolls that are chucking spears from the top of its head or the top of its body, and it's like a big armored dino. I don't know, but I'd like to see something like that so that we can match the scale and spectacle of having these two great navies smash against each other. Because if it's just rafts and canoes and stuff, I'll be woefully unimpressed. Okay, allied races is next on the list. Again, I'm speaking for myself. It's not a big deal with allied races because I'm not going to play them. I still like the look of a blood elf. I'm going to stick with a blood elf, and anyone who says otherwise, it's like, well, this is what I prefer. That's cool. A lot of people that I've talked to are really impressed by the Zandalari trolls, and they're going to love rolling as them. Some people are threatening to switch from Alliance to Horde just so they can play as a Zandalari troll. But a lot of people are also super excited about playing as a blood elf kind of finally, or at least they can have kind of the model set for a blood elf, but instead it's a void elf, so they kind of get a little compromise. I see a little bit more excitement over the Dark Iron Dwarves though. People have been wanting to play those for years and years because the Dark Iron Dwarves, they've been around for a while. As for what I'm hoping for next, I'll probably talk about that in a separate video, but I'm thinking things like the Mag'har. I'd love for them to join. What other races come to mind? The Vrykruul, Tuskar, Tonka, Hosen, those four-legged things from Ramken, those dog-like things. I don't remember. Then there's the Jinyu. Shoot, let's throw in Clockwork Gnomes while we're at it, or maybe even the Earthen. Those stone dwarves. That'd be kind of neat. There's a ton of them that can be included. I am pretty happy that these allied races aren't just going to be like, ta-da, you can choose them. That there's going to be a narrative behind them, because you might remember from an earlier video where I said, oh, I really want them to be a more neutral faction where they can join either the Alliance or the Horde for their own reasons. But I guess in this case, there's going to be a narrative that's written for them that will make them choose one side or the other, and I don't agree with it, but that's okay. One thing I'm not happy about though, which I understand but I'm still not happy about it, is the fact that the heritage armor sets are going to be locked to those races. So even if I were to roll as a Dark Iron Dwarf, roll it, get it up to max level and unlock that heritage set, I'd only be able to use that heritage set on a Dark Iron Dwarf. I wouldn't be able to like import that, or I wouldn't be able to share that on my wardrobe and otherwise wear it on my Paladin or my Priest or my Demon Hunter. That'd be really weird. Demon Hunter with plate. Well, anyway, that part kind of sucks. I understand where they're coming from. It would suck to take those kinds of efforts. Once you do unlock those transmog items, you just kind of throw that character to the wayside. You're like, okay, cool, I'm done with you, thanks. So I get where they're coming from for now. My hopes are that in the future that they give a little bit of flexibility and allow us to do that. But at least for now, with the way that they're framing it, it will give much more better information to players as to, or to them as to, just what is this race representation going to be like? What's going to be, one of the more favorite races among the allied races that players are going to hop onto. Legendaries in Battle for Azeroth. None. There are no legendaries in Battle for Azeroth. At least not that we know of. Like, at least it's not going to be the super random drop. Maybe you'll get it over the course of the expansion, and maybe you won't. So we're not going to get that. Instead, we're going to get the Heart of Azeroth. And what I think about it is largely positive. I think it's going to work out pretty decently so far. Now, I see this whole thing with the Heart of Azeroth as, how should I say it? I'll go with a armor proficiency system for your head, shoulders, and chest. So the way it works, you level up your Azeroth, you level up your Heart of Azeroth by doing Azerite it's basically artifact power. Okay, you go all over the place and you get AP So we're pretty much still gonna call it AP. But anyway, you go around, you get AP, your amulet slowly levels up, and it applies to all of your specs. Unfortunately, not account wide, so I'm sure that players are going to get in a whole fit over that. You gain levels, and then as you gain these levels, these levels grant you what I'm just going to call proficiency. For your head, shoulders, and chest. So from that, you'll be able to unlock certain traits on these items, and you know, you have choices as to what you want to choose, and then you go into the middle, and it looks like there's something cool in the middle. I don't know, maybe it's like warm chocolate filling, or maybe it's a you know, a cool skill or an ability or something that we should have baseline in our class, but we don't because Blizzard took our stuff away, and now they're putting it into this, so grr. But I like this. This gives us the ability to, one, plan for our gear, you know, so we can look at the dungeon journal and find out, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this, because it gives me those kinds of traits. We also have the agency of choice, because that gives us the ability to, one, plan, but two, we'll be able to, like, customize, you know, do a little bit of customizing on our gear and make ourselves unique according to our class and spec and so on and so forth. One question that I have, though, is with regards to, well, what about hybrid classes? What if you change from one spec to another? And I tried looking, I couldn't find an answer to that. I don't know if that's been addressed yet. So maybe it will be a situation like way back in the day where we do need to get like a healing and a DPS sort of set, because the choices that are on those pieces of gear, you know, maybe one piece of gear tailors far more towards DPS stuff, the other for healing and utility or so. Or maybe we can just choose whatever we want on that ring, which to me would be kind of a turnoff, because then it would just be 3 more talent slots, and the talent slots are just different depending on the gear that we wear. So if it's something like that, this will add a layer of complexity that's borderline too much, because people will be relying on obtaining like this certain gear. Fortunately, it's not a situation where we have to rely on it Titan forging or anything like that. It's just cool. We get it. So if we get the dungeon version, whatever. But if we get, you know, the mythic version, okay, cool. The question that I have from there, though, is how is that going to apply with mythic keystones? Because with each several difficulties, or, you know, with depending on the difficulty, you might get a different item level version of said item. So from that, because mythic plus dungeons are going to provide the biggest variation of item level rewards and scaling, we might see a lot more participation of Mythic Plus dungeons at a high level. So that's going to be pretty interesting. Or they won't do that, and it'll kind of suck. So, well, we're really just going to have to see. I'm also excited about the way that it's going to scale, at least from the impressions that I have. You know, if we have, let's say we have an item level 100 piece of armor, and my Heart of Azeroth is at level 10, and I get access to like all those pieces of, you know, everything, you know, all the way down to the gooey middle. Okay, that's cool. But then if I get an item level 150, you know, a piece of equipment, all of a sudden I'm finding that, oh, I can only go halfway into that ring. Oh, that gooey middle, it's so far away. So I'm gonna have to start pushing. So it feels balanced with regards to how our Heart of Azeroth level is going to relate to the access that we're going to have onto our gear. The question, though, is going to be, how is it going to, you know, is there going to be like an artifact knowledge and Azerite knowledge sort of deal again? I'm thinking that there will be, and my hopes are that it's just like how it is right now with artifact knowledge in Legion 7.3 and above, because it's just automatic. It's just kind of a natural. It's a natural progression. People don't have to, you know, feel too butthurt about being so far behind, and people don't feel super obligated to like grind unless, you know, you're reaching some certain threshold and you're like, oh my god, I'm so close to the next level, and I really want to unlock the gooey center of this helmet that I've got. So there are decisions to be made. There is planning to be done. So far, I'm happy with it. But if you have any other additional thoughts about this or anything here to that you think should be a concern, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Finally, or at least finally for now, so anything that I missed, I'll just do it in a separate video, so please remind me what I forget. There's the PvP rule set change, which I think it's funny because there wasn't a lot of talk about it, or at least I'm not seeing. Like, I'm seeing people talk about it, but it doesn't have as much buzz as I thought there would be, because just like what they did with Legion and pretty much kind of like jacking up PvP gear, this is huge. This isn't just a change for PvP. This is a change to the landscape of the World of Warcraft itself. I mean, think about it. We have several different kinds of rounds: PvE, PvP, RP, PvP, and not PvP, and all that's going away. The only flags that we're going to have is whether or not your realm is RP or not. And so that's only going to be like a couple of realms. Server lines are once again going to be blurred. And we're moving even more forward to pretty much merging all realms together. It's just a matter of them being sharded. And I'm anxious about it because it's going to kind of highlight or exacerbate the kinds of divides that separate PvE players and PvP players. Because we may very easily find that at a low level, very, very few people are going to flag themselves for PvP. I mean, you gotta have big balls if you want to flag yourself for PvP. The developers have addressed this to a certain point during some interviews where they talked about, well, in certain scaling areas, like let's say if you're in Hellfire Citadel or Hellfire Peninsula, which is a very popular PvP hotspot, you will only, you as a level, 70 player, you will only be in the same shard as players in a similar level, which is cool from a balance standpoint, but from a natural world PvP kind of feel, that's very, I don't know, that's like a bit too much control in part of Blizzard to manipulate things for the sake of fairness. Now, of course, it doesn't feel good whenever you're trying to just do your questing, and then all of a sudden some burly motherfucker who's level 120 comes in and stomps into the ground or throws you off of Outland into the Barrens or something. But at the same time, this isn't a very popular thought, but at the same time, going Murder Town on people for the sake of the joy of killing, that tends to instigate, it sometimes instigates retaliation, followed by more retaliation, and then ta-da, Terran Mill versus South Shore. So the kind of organic feel of PvP, this whole thing, it's not going to solve that, in my opinion. I don't think it's entirely going to solve that. It's just going to make PvE players that happen to be on PvP realms because all their friends around there, it's going to help them because they're like, oh well, I don't want to be a part of, I have guildmates that felt that way when I transferred our guild over to Bleeding Hollow, which is the PvP realm. A lot of them, and these days myself included, we don't really care too much about PvP. But I don't mind, but I personally don't mind it because I like the thrill. I like the ambiance of having to kind of watch your back or having to defend myself if someone feels like, they can go to town on me. But what I am excited about is that the world now becomes, the entire world becomes a PvP platform that Blizzard can play with. So we can have nice things like a world PvP like bounty sort of system. Now, of course, Blizzard said that they aren't committed to this sort of system at all. They're just kind of talking about this as, one possible talking point, but let's, well, what would it be like? Off the top of my head, which means this is already a bad idea. Like, let's say you're someone that likes to just do world PvP, you kill a bunch of guys, and eventually the system flags you as a bounty target. So for the next, I don't know, for the next like 10 in-game hours, not real life hours, but the next 10 in-game hours. So even if you log out and log back in, that timer is still gonna, is still gonna be there. You're a target. And from that, your the honor that people earn off of killing you is going to go up. Maybe there's like additional rewards or achievements or whatnot for them killing you, and of course there's an incentive for you to survive. So maybe this timer only works when you're in, when you're not in like your capital city or something like that, or if you happen to or like if you're not killing people within a certain amount of time, then that bounty goes away. Cool, but maybe if you do like manage to outlast the entire duration of the bounty, then you get a very cool reward. So it's your job to just kind of survive for the next 10 in-game hours. I don't know how that would work, but something like that might not be possible in this current PvP rule set we have. So I don't know. I guess overall, I'm anxious about what it's going to do to the WoW community as a whole, but at the same time, I'm excited about using the entire world as a possible platform for PvP activities, not just by having certain areas be restricted for PvP, but having events that everyone can participate in, and the technology is there to make these kinds of events happen almost anywhere. So I think that's just about all the things that to talk about the Battle for Azeroth announcement. But now of course it's just like all the speculation as to, you know, when it's coming out, and I have a lengthy video about my thoughts on that, and just kind of story-wise what's going to happen next. Right now the rumors are flying that Wrathion is going to be have a big involvement, because, well, maybe it was Wrathion that burned down Teldrassil. Okay, I think I got that. Maybe it was Wrathion that burned down the tree, or you know, there's tons and tons of speculation. But to just kind of maybe quell that a little bit, because the conversation seems to be getting louder and louder. Alex Afriyasabi did go on record to say that there is nothing planned for Wrathion right now in Battle for Azeroth, which is the big shame if that turns out to be true. All we had to go with was red shirt guys saying, hey, you know what, I saw Wrathion over in this area, over in the Battle for Azeroth demo, oh my god. But for anyone who was part of the Legion Alpha, we saw Wrathion play a part in the High Mountain storyline. So for those who don't know, there is an NPC over in High Mountain called Ebonhorn. Now Ebonhorn is a black dragon. He helps the players and the High Mountain Torrent out. But before, in the Legion Alpha, Ebonhorn wasn't Ebonhorn, Ebonhorn was Wrathion, and his objective was to secure these eggs that he was going to use for who knows what. And that was playable. We played through the whole thing, and then it was done. And that was pulled out. Blizzard decided that that storyline didn't quite make sense in the whole context of Legion, so they took that kind of thing out. So the fact that all that was going on in the Battle for Azeroth demo is that Wrathion was just kind of sitting there. They could have easily just like, we just had him there, but forget it, we just took him out. And that's really it. So I'm a little bit sad. Wrathion he's a pretty fascinating character, and especially with Anduin, the Boy King, at the helm, and the events of earlier in Mists of Pandaria, Wrathion and Anduin, they have a strange relationship, especially if you look at like certain fanfiction websites. It's a strange relationship. So if he does not in fact play a part in Battle for Azeroth, I'll be once again a little bit disappointed, because we've been seeing little breadcrumbs of him here and there, but no impact at all. But all in all, when we take everything together, the Battle for Azeroth, the announcement for Classic Realms and all that stuff, I'm really excited about the future for the World of Warcraft. My hopes are that the community gets bigger, that more and more people get exposed to either version of the World of Warcraft, and just gets excited about something and finds something to enjoy. The last thing is one tip that I have for all of you at home, or on the toilet, or in the car. I would advise generating as much gold as possible through the current systems in Legion, and I'm talking mostly about order halls. As far as we know, in Battle for Azeroth, there will be no offline progression system, which means those possible tens of thousands of gold that you're making each day just by running missions through your order hall is going to go away. If no other major systems like this are announced between now and the launch of Battle for Azeroth, then this will be the first time since Mists of Pandaria, with the whole farm thing, that there is no offline progress made. So I would advise beware and think twice about blowing all your gold on transmog. I'm going to have to, which makes me a little bit sad. But I think that the economy in Battle for Azeroth is going to be different. And with that, that's it for today's show. Next week, we'll be going back to the normal format, including Bob, who I know that you miss so much. Or if you just like this the way that it is, let me know in a comment below, because I'm always up for input, to make this channel better. Shout out to all the new subscribers and viewers on my stream. I'm glad to have you. And I encourage you, please, support the channel the best way you know how. I would say that being a patron would be one of the best ways to do it, though. Every little bit helps to keep the lights on, to get new equipment, to get meds for my puppy. But like I said earlier, I very much appreciate your inputs and your positive energy. Those things will help me improve. I can't wait to see you folks next week for more Battle for Azeroth and all things World of Warcraft. So you all have a good one. Stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.